any questions that you'd like to ask me personally about anything that I've experienced or what certain things mean to me? There must be something.
I have questions, sir. So out of all the styles, and you've done so many styles and learned from so many people, what's like one of your favorites? Is it jiu-jitsu? Just like something you love to train? That's your passion? Or is it just everything?
Yeah, it's kind of everything. Probably, you know, like my karate is still my main passion because that's my base, that's my structure. Look, I think, you know, I think probably anything I find that I end up involving myself in has passion for me, you know, and I have passion for it. Otherwise, I wouldn't kind of waste my time doing it, you know. Like the Muay Thai, the kickboxing, you know, when I started with Benny Okitas, that's how, of course, I met Petey, you know, Cunningham. And I mean, I love that because that to me was suddenly a little different from more of the theoretical aspects of karate because, you know, karate is about control. You control punches here for obvious reasons. And my whole base training was involved in that sort of form of karate, a lot of kata training. When I started with the kickboxing, suddenly it got from the theoretical and a lot more of the practical, you know. If you didn't block, you knew it because your head kind of spun around, you know, or whatever it is, you know. And that was an interesting phase for me. I loved the training. I loved the professionalism and the absolute mastery that Sensei Benny, you know, Okitas had for the art that he was in. And again, getting back to gentlemen, by the way, just as to interject, you know, if you haven't had the pleasure of meeting Sensei Benny, I mean, what a gentleman. You know, this is a guy, I used to watch Sensei Ben spar people from Europe. They'd come out and they'd get in a ring. And I'd be on the side of the ring with Ruben, Benny's brother, and a few others, and Sensei Ben would be sparring them. And you know these guys are just there to kind of show what they can do, and I'm a Dutch kickboxer or whatever. And they would go as hard as they could, and they'd sometimes hip throw Sensei Ben around and everything, and he'd just get up and move around. I mean, to the point that, you know, Sensei Ruben, his brother, would look at him and go, "Sensei, you right?" You know, it's like, come on, step it up. Because even for us, because he was our instructor at the time, we're kind of like out of ego. Well, come on, show him your Benny the Jet, you know, Rocky's world for him a little bit. But how impressive it was to me that he never ever did that, that he was at such a level where from an ego point of view, he no longer had to prove to anybody what he was capable of doing, that he was Benny the Jet, and that, well, I can really do this and this to you. That was an inherent confidence that he had that he never had to externalize. By the way, you know, if it was in the street or something, was someone going to mug him or do something else, you would see a very different person. I'm obviously talking about the environment being in dojo as such, you know. I thought, what an elevated level to get to, you know, how good is that, and how difficult is that to get to? Because I bet we all know when we spar, whether we grapple, we spar, and somebody gets a good shot in, it's like, whoa, what are you thinking about? I want to get one back. That's very natural, and that's kind of okay, you know, but to get to the level of Sensei Ben where that was no longer a factor, I thought was just incredible. Got off the subject there with passion, but, you know, when we're talking about the journey as black belts, you know, it's a multifaceted journey for you guys now, because I've also said that when I started, you just did judo. When I started karate, that's all you did, and there were friends that did boxing. Wrestling didn't come into it, there were people that just wrestled, but that's all you did. You didn't cross-train. That wasn't the martial arts environment. You know, it was very much blinkers on, you did your style and that was it. These days, as is obvious from the class structure now, you're doing your traditional, you know, Hapkido-based training, you're doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you're doing Muay Thai, so it's a whole mixture of things and everything. And but that's kind of exciting too, because, you know, when I didn't start grappling till I was like, you know, 40 years of age or whatever, a little bit more. And my first lesson in BJJ was with Rickson Gracie. And that started, by the way, from Chuck Norris had gone to Brazil just for a trip, a holiday, and ended up visiting the Gracie Academy there, and he met Helio Gracie, Rickson Gracie, Hoist Gracie was there, and had a chat, and they gave him a tape, which was a videotape of Rickson in one of his very early no-rules matches in Brazil, where he fought this big, dark gentleman named Zulu, and ended up, I think, beating him with a triangle choke. Chuck brought this back and showed it to me. And I was like, wow, look at this, And anyway, to cut a long story short, I ended up finding out, you find out, well, what is this Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? And Rickson Gracie, it turned out, lived about 3 miles from where I had lived for 10 years, and I never even knew it. And then when I moved out to the valleys, when I suddenly realized they were out there, I looked up and I managed, without going into all the details, to train with Rickson, and that was just in Rickson Gracie's garage. And Hoist was there, and my first lesson was that I had, Hoist got his back, and my job was to get on Hoist and try and stay there. And, there was no punching or kicking or obviously. And then I had to lie on my back, and Hoist sat on me, and my job was to get him off me. Both were futile, as you kind of know when you've had a bit of a try at this when you first start the BJJ. And I did quite a number of lessons with Rickson, and Rickson was, again, we're talking about gentlemanly arts, and another just perfect gentleman. You couldn't meet a nicer individual than Rickson. He was so helpful, so gentle with the way he imparted his knowledge. Anyway, I ended up going back to Australia, and through meeting Renzo Gracie, was introduced to the Machados. They're all cousins, as you know, there's hundreds of them. Machados, of course, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, it's all Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And that's how I started training with the Machados in their garage out in Redondo Beach. They were all living in the same house. Things are a little different now, a little more affluent now. But the point of that is that the excitement of learning a new art like Jiu-Jitsu was just like, oh my goodness, I couldn't get enough of it. And that's kind of, again, what the journey is about, continually looking and trying to find new things you can learn that will make you better and better as a martial artist, That's why, again, I brought up the samurai. They didn't just learn sword, they learned flower arranging and the tea ceremony and all other aspects of life that tended to make them well-rounded as artists. And for you, that involves learning different arts and finding different people that can teach you something new to add to your art. And we're getting right back again to the whole basis of what a black belt means. It's just a whole different obligation. You are no longer a boy rank, a Q rank, where you're just there to be fed everything as you walk into class. You need to be innovative, research, and just actively go about establishing a journey in the arts and adding as much knowledge as you can to what you do, and to be the best representative of the arts you can possibly be. And by the way, just be passionate. I believe you are all passionate. There's no way you would be here spending tonight on these mats, even though Mr. Firebush says you'd love it. I don't think I'll be sleeping in a sleeping bag here tonight. Maybe I don't have enough passion for that tonight, but you guys are showing passion just by that sort of a commitment, and that is a wonderful thing, and I implore you, the older you get, the more you will realize the value of having something in your life that you're passionate about, something that makes it worthwhile getting up every day. There are things you will do, like the struggle to make a living, that really kind of distracts and detracts from what you're doing with your arts. That's all part of it, because you need to make a living and you need to be able to pay the fees in order to further your art. But at least be actively passionate about what you're doing, especially as black belts. and pass that passion on and that feeling and that yearning and everything to the younger students and the new students, whatever age they may be, that come in and train around you and are around you and are in your presence. That also, as a black belt, is part of your obligation to the arts, the way I see it. Anything, any other questions? Must be something. Doesn't matter how flippant it is. Yes?
Are there any practices that you find helpful in maintaining a black belt consciousness, like beyond these four walls and in your daily life?
Any practices? Oh, look, you know, for me, this is again just a personal thing. I know what I went through. You know, when I talk about being innovative and trying to find knowledge, part of that was having an interest in Zen, Buddhism, in trying to find people that could explain to me where is the mind in the martial arts, you know. And honestly, if you have an interest in this, I implore you to look this book up. And again, it's called Zen and Japanese Culture, because the chapters are really all on Zen and the samurai. It doesn't matter whether you're talking samurai or martial artist or Hapkido student or Goju-Ryu student, you know. We're talking about combative arts, which is what we're involved in here. And the book is just wonderful in giving you an explanation of where the mind is. And that's kind of what it is, because, you know, you've got to look at the mind. If you think of, you know, a gun and, you know, and bullets in a gun, you need a trigger, you know. So if these are your bullets and this is the trigger, you know, bullets are useless if you can't pull the trigger, you know. So there's a state of mind that goes with combative arts. That, by the way, implies not just using, but more importantly, not using what you're capable of doing and the harm and pain that you're capable of inflicting. So that's the first thing I'd say, you know. Read a book like that. It's a fantastic book, just to give you a little bit of a different way of the martial arts as far as the cerebral aspect and not just the physical aspect. The other thing that I used to do is, you know, I used to just try different things, you know. I told you I lived in the bush, you know, out in Croydon in Australia. And I used to, when I was 16, 17, had a motorbike, I used to just ride it up into this kind of a volcanic kind of mountain ranges behind us. And I would sometimes stay there for 8 hours. And I just lie on the ground, probably think, wow, that's a good way to spend your life. But I would just lie on the ground, and that was when I started that was my meditation, you know. And I would just lie there, and I would just start to hear, you know, we had bellbirds, they call them, you know, particular birds and everything, lyrebirds and things like that in the bush. And I tried to just listen to sounds, you know, in this bush. And I got to the point that I believed that I learned to make myself just totally one with that environment. It's interesting because stuff I'm into now with Eckhart Tolle, who is a wonderful spiritual teacher that wrote a book called The Power of Now. And it's really about being in the moment, not in a future story of what you're going to be next week, where you're going to be a year from now, you know, in your head all the time, but rather just where am I right now in this very moment, you know. And, you know, we drift, we think, oh, what time is my legs are getting a little sore, oh, I'm a little hungry, you know, which is really about a future story. It's not about what's going on in this moment. So for me, lying in the bush like this and just lying there, I believe that, I think I did, even though my eyes are closed, even had issues of snakes, you know, coming and kind of crawling over my ankles. I probably didn't have the nerve to open my eyes to see whether that was happening, but I just got in such a state of mind, I believed that I was absolutely part of that moment, and I had every right to be there, the same as a tree or a lyrebird or a bellbird or whatever else was there, you know. Look, it might sound a little weird trying to explain it, you know, without actually experiencing, but that was my way of starting to be innovative in how I wanted to develop myself as a martial artist, you know. And again, this, we talk about all that as far as state of mind, you know, you go through all this sort of stuff when you line up. You know, there's a reason that when you do your forms together as a group, that you're supposed to look as though you are one when you do them. Peripheral awareness, you know. You don't look at the person next to you. You have a timing, boom, you know, we used to get, that's what was drilled into us when we did our kata training. It was like perfect timing, usually to the pace of the advanced student. But all of that, of standing there like this, you know, with your hands down for us, knuckles down, knees bent, hips back, shoulders back, chin up. When you look at that, you think, well, what does that serve from a competitive point of view? What it really does is just show that you can get your mind in every part of your body at the same time, which is total relevance for fighting, you know, to be able to kick, to punch, to move with any aspect of your body, and more important, to be able to react to whatever somebody does with the right blocks or right parts of your body as a defensive mechanism. That becomes a peripheral sort of awareness and state of mind that you develop. And I'm giving you really abstract examples here, but that sort of meditation that I did, I even got into, I had an instructor, Sal Ebenez in Goju, and he started talking to me about, we have a kata called Tensho, breathing kata. You know, it's all develop, you know, your breathing, your internal strength. And he started saying that he used to go out, you know, in a quiet area and practice, and he would leave his body and watch himself doing this kata and correct himself and everything. And he's telling me this, and I'm like, you know, because I was pretty young, and it's like, what are you talking about, you know? Well, and again, this is what I mean about kind of being innovative and being, creating your journey. That intrigued me so much that I ended up going to some psychics, to some mediums, and I ended up with a book called Projection of the Astral Body by Hereward Carrington and Sylvan Muldoon. And this, Hereward Carrington was what could you say, used to write on psychic subjects. And Hereward Carrington was apparently, Sylvan Muldoon rather, was this character that apparently could separate his ethereal body. He could project himself astrally at will. Like he could lie down, get into what he called, you know, an alpha state of mind, and you go into what they call a cataleptic state, which everybody goes into and out of when you go into and out of sleep. It's just that we just naturally go through it and force through it. But he realized there was a state that when you're in this cataleptic state that you could discoincide with your physical, your energy body, your ethereal body could discoincide. And he could project out, and he could travel, and he could visit places in the world and everything, and remember exactly what he's seen. He would float up and see his physical body below him. And you've all heard of books, you know, people have written on near-death experiences where they've talked about being in operating rooms and supposedly dead as far as medical terms, but watching their bodies and then deciding that they're going to, you know, continue on this physical form. Now, you know, there's lots of arguments before and against, you know, practical sciences will argue, no, it's this, it's that. You know, for me, I didn't really care. It was such a fascinating, all I ever wanted to do was to be able to achieve that. And when I left school, I went straight to the immigration department, and for months and months, I'd go out at lunchtime and go to sleep in my car. And all I wanted to do was to be able to drift out the roof of the car. And I achieved some really interesting results out of that, to the point that nobody could tell me that I was dreaming, you know. Now, what has that got to do with anything? Well, that got to the point that when I went into the school, I suddenly came to the thought that we have an energy body, you know, and you've heard the saying that thoughts are things, meaning that thoughts create, you know, they manifest physical realities, you know. A light bulb never just happened, it started as an idea in somebody's head. Depending on how intensely that person wanted it, it manifested itself, it became, you know, physical. So I started with what I was doing with this astral projection. When I spar with my black belts, I thought, well, if this energy body, if I can use this as a radar, if thoughts are things, then the energy body, my energy body, will be able to register, anticipate a conscious thought of the person I'm sparring, and using my ethereal body and energy body as a radar, I can anticipate that and start to react even before that person kind of put that thought in its physical form with either a kick or a punch, if that makes sense, you know. And I remember one stage of sparring with one of my higher ranked black belts. And just putting a hand up and stuff, moving with him, to the point that he suddenly stopped and said, kind of, what's going on here? He said, you seem to be anticipating what I'm going to do before I've even started to do it. Is that really so or not? Again, I don't. For me, it's my belief, you know, and that's kind of what I got out of that. Why am I bringing it up? Because of what you're asking. That there are so many interesting things in this journey you can go on as a black belt that will really add to what you do and make you very unique, you know, this state of mind that we're in, this energy, this anticipation. And I just got that by experimenting with as many different things as I can. I know that it'll all sound a little like out there, you know, in the brief way I'm able to explain it now. There's obviously a lot more detail and depth, you know, with what I'm talking about. But again, I'm not saying to do any of what I did. All I'm saying is that just be your own inventors, you know. Like I said to you, you know, if that fan didn't just happen like that, it started as somebody visualizing, or a rotary engine, and suddenly it becomes their invention. For you as black belts in your martial arts, why not be your own invention, you know? This is all it takes, you know. This is what creates your reality. But just don't, again, I'm getting back to, don't just imitate. Don't just wait to be hand-fed or spoon-fed. You know, do things. Just experiment. You don't even have to tell people what you're doing. Just dare to participate is another thing I like to say. Dare to participate, meaning it really takes guts to even do what you're doing, and to be black belts takes a lot of courage. To suddenly be the person in the class that everybody looks up to, that when you spar, to be better than everybody else, at least the way, you know, the ranks denote you be, that takes a lot of courage and a lot of strength in it. But I'm just saying, dare to go on that journey and dare to participate. It's not easy, but boy, is it ever rewarding. And just never ever stop that journey of introspection and learning and developing, you know. I still, you know how long I've trained, you know. As I said, I'm training with Jean-Jacques, and I keep telling you guys this, after 18 plus years of jiu-jitsu, I mean, I'm like, what's going on here, you know? There's no way I could even ever conceive of tapping him out once, let alone having someone like Egan lying on top of you. All I want to do is just tap out like an idiot to get him off me, you know? But how cool is that? But also, what does it tell you about the amount of time I've trained and how much of a journey I have to go to be the level, you know, that I know I can be to represent, say, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you know? Just don't be complacent, you know, just search. It's all out there. I keep telling you guys, nothing that I ever do came through divine order, you know. God just goes, oh, here it is, and you don't have to work for it. It's up to you guys, you know. Go out and find it. The knowledge is there. It's on DVDs. It's on the internet. My goodness, you know. You can look everything that I've talked about today, and you'll find a wealth of information on the internet, which, you know, we never had ways ago. But you have it. Use it, you know. Don't wait for somebody to say, well, this is what you should look up now, and then I want you to look up that. You know what I mean? make your own journey. Any other questions? Yes.
You were talking about